Hi, it's the M.L.M for the Soul channel. I do have a new topic for today. Before I begin, I would just like to say, may the words and expressions of my mouth and the thoughts and meditations of my heart find favor and acceptance before you, Hashem. This is the continuation of the Mesillas Yesharim, Way of the Upright, Path of the Just, or called Path of the Just by the Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Lutzato. And this is the Yafa edition from ArtScroll. And here's what the Sefer looks like if you've never seen it. And this is Baruch Hashem part 55 onto a new chapter finally. This is chapter 13. Chapter 12. Sorry, blah, blah. Rewind. We finished chapter 11. This is chapter 12, and it's a very short chapter. It is continuation of Nekiyus. It is called The Way to Acquire Nekiyus. Oh, and I also will have a link to ArtScroll below so you can check out all that they offer. So this will be actually the last chapter on Nekiyus. I think... Let's see, Nekiyus was how many chapters? I'll tell you in just a second. How many chapters did Nekiyus? Was 1, 2, just 3, because the second chapter was very long. So, and then we'll go on to a different trait, BeEzrat Hashem, the following week. Okay, so chapter 12. So the way to acquire Nekiyus, which is also called Cleanliness. So the true means by which to acquire the trait of Nekiyus is through constant study of the words of our sages of blessed memory, both in subjects of Torah law and in subjects of ethical instruction. For consider, after a person has already confirmed for himself the obligation of acquiring Nekiyus and the necessity of mastering this trait, which will come after he has already attained the traits of Zehirus and Zerizus, by having engaged in the methods of acquiring them and having distanced himself from the factors that detract from them, there will at this point no longer remain before him any hindrances to acquiring Nekiyus, except for gaining knowledge of the details of the commandments, so that he can be scrupulous in adhering to all of them. And the commentary here says, as Ramchal explained in chapter 10, Zehirus itself is the first stage of Nekiyus, and it and Zerizus serve as the stepping stones to Nekiyus. So when one habituates himself in the traits of Zehirus and Zerizus, thereby attaining basic purity from sin and nurturing his love for his Creator, this will gradually free him from the lure of physicality and make him strive for spirituality until he attains a complete cleansing from any improper desire for or trace of sin, which is the essence of Nekiyus. Thus, mastering Zehirus and Zerizus is itself the basic way to acquire Nekiyus. Nevertheless, if one does not know what is expected of him, inspiration alone will not enable him to reach his goal. In order to harness his inspiration for concrete action, he must learn the details of the mitzvot so that he may scrupulously observe them. Mishnah Berurah, Introduction to Hilchos Shabbos, citing Ya'aros Devash, makes this point. Even when a person is inspired to observe the laws of Shabbat, if he does not study them well and review them constantly, he will inevitably transgress some of them. Inspiration is of no avail if one lacks knowledge of what is permitted and what is forbidden. So that's a good example. I'm just saying this, that, you're inspired, you want to keep something, but if you don't study it and learn it and review it over and over, then the chances are that you may sin about it because it's just you're inspired to, but you're not actually learning what you have to or are forbidden to do. Okay, so continuing on, Ramchal says, therefore it is absolutely necessary for him to have a thorough knowledge of the Torah laws, to know how far the branches and subdivisions of the commandments reach. Additionally, since forgetfulness is common with these finer points of mitzvot, he will require constant study of the books that clarify these details, to continually refresh recollection of them in his mind. Then, with comprehensive knowledge and constant review, he will surely be inspired to fulfill them. And the commentary here says, there are two ways in which studying Torah leads to perfect fulfillment of its laws. That is to Zehirus and ultimately to Nekiyus. The direct impact of Torah study is that it alerts a person to his obligations, enabling him to apply in practice the inspiration he receives through other sources. An additional benefit, however, is that Torah study itself is a great source of inspiration. As Ramchal noted in chapter 5, if one applies himself to such study, the light of the Torah will automatically arouse him to good and restore him to the proper path. And then it says, see insight there at note 12, which I'm not doing, but that's what it says. So this inspiration is multifaceted. Toiling in Torah purifies the soul and refines it, exposing it to the sweetness of spirituality for which it then develops a taste. Such toil also influences a person to develop a deep inner bond to the mitzvot and a determination to fulfill them, even though this may be very difficult. One naturally becomes devoted not only to the particular mitzvah whose laws he studies, but also to the mitzvah observance in general. For the rigorous study of even one area of halacha deepens one's appreciation of all of the Torah law. Thus, the constant review of halacha that Ramchal proposes here not only serves to inform the person how to attain Nekiyus, but is a catalyst to acquiring this trait. That's Chazon Ish Emunah Bitachon 3:7-9. So he's saying that by reviewing it, it's not only you're not only informed on it, but it also helps you acquire it. So he continues on. In the previous chapter, Ramchal specified that Nekiyus is necessary not only for actions and mitzvot, but for character traits, which are midos as well. He now addresses this topic. The same is true regarding cleansing oneself from negative character traits. In order to acquire this dimension of Nekiyus, it is essential for one to read the ethical discourses of earlier or most recent sages. And the commentary here says, early works would include the Pirkei Avos and the Agadic portions of the Gemara, as well as works of Rishonim such as Chovos HaLevavos and Sha'arei Tshuva. Later works would, from today's perspective, include works such as Mesillas Yesharim, which is what we're reading now, and other expositions of Achronim, as well as more contemporary works. Just as the study of halachic codes enables one to gain Nekiyus in mitzvot by familiarizing himself with the minute details of the laws that he needs to scrupulously observe, so does the study of Mussar enable one to gain Nekiyus in character by educating him in the intricacies of human nature and interpersonal relations. The study of Mussar is also a potent motivational tool at every stage of spiritual growth. Here, however, Ramchal does not refer to inspirational Mussar, but to the practical aspect of cultivating good midot and attitudes. This particular avenue of Mussar is of prime importance in acquiring the trait of Nekiyus. That's Rabbi Cheskel Sarna Iyunim. Okay, and he continues on. For many times, even after a person is firmly resolved to be among the meticulous ones who attain Nekiyus, it is still possible for him to err in certain details because his knowledge did not encompass them. Indeed, such errors are almost inevitable for a person. Indeed, such errors are almost inevitable. For a person is not born wise, and it is impossible for him to instinctively know everything. However, through constant study of these matters, one will be awakened to that which he did not previously know, and will contemplate that which he did not previously discern. And the commentary here says, even in matters that he already knew, he will gain a clearer understanding, advancing from limited and superficial knowledge to broad and deep insights. So he's saying the more that you study it, the more that you understand it. And this is including even that which he did not find in the sacred books themselves. For once one's intellect is awakened to the matter of perfecting his character traits, his mind will proceed to pay attention to all the possibilities, and he will produce original ideas for self-improvement, which emanate from the source of truth, i.e. the Torah, lessons set forth in the works of the sages. And the commentary here says, questions of halacha are very often addressed in public works, and even when new issues arise that can be clarified by contemporary halachic authorities. However, the same is not true in matters of character improvement. Such matters cannot possibly be described in all their details in written or oral dissertations, since circumstances continually vary and interpersonal relationships are already nuanced. One must often determine on his own what is proper. That is what constitutes Nekiyus in a given situation. However, by constantly staying attuned to the sage's teachings regarding the subject, one will find the inner resources to discern the correct approach, even in situations that have not been addressed by authorities. And additional commentary says, according to Rabbi Cheskel Sarna Iyunim, the source of truth refers to siyata d'shmaya, which means the divine assistance, granted to those who toil to the best of their ability to acquire the knowledge necessary for Nekiyus. The one who, meaning it's capital, meaning it's talking about Hashem, endows mankind with wisdom, enables them to perceive matters that are not discussed in written works. Similarly, the sages teach that a scholar's ability to correctly resolve obscure halakhic questions depends on siyata d'shmaya. That's Sota 21a with Rashi. Okay, so continuing on, now on the factors that detract from Nekiyus. Now, the factors that impair this trait are the same as all the factors that impair the trait of Zehirus, which are preoccupation with worldly matters, levity and cynicism, and negative peer pressure as discussed in chapter 5. And then the commentary here says, as mentioned in note 1, Nekiyus is really an extension of Zehirus, so it is logical that whatever detracts from Zehirus will likewise interfere with the acquisition of Nekiyus. Aside from the reasons mentioned there as to why these factors detract from Zehirus, which apply to Nekiyus as well, they also distract a person from Torah study and thus prevent him from acquiring the comprehensive knowledge of halacha and mussar that is necessary for Nekiyus. Okay, so he continues on. In addition to these, there is also the lack of comprehensive knowledge of Torah laws or of ethical instructions, as I have just written. In this vein, the sages of blessed memory have already stated in Mishnah Avos 2:5, an ignorant person cannot be a pious person. It's a famous one, V'lo am haaretz chasid. Okay, and the reason is obvious. For one who does not know cannot perform. So the Ramchal commentary here says, the Ramchal cited this Mishnah above in chapter 5, factors that detract from the Zehirus. And he cites it again below in chapter 18 about elements of Hasidus, which are piety. Although the Mishnah states literally that an ignoramus cannot acquire this trait of Hasidus, Ramchal apparently understands it to mean that such a person cannot even begin to climb the ladder that leads to Hasidus, since Torah knowledge is a basic necessity for even the earlier stages of Zehirus and Nekiyus. That's Iyunim of Rav Cheskel Charna and Me'or HaMesillas, chapter 5, see note 5 there. Okay, and finishing up here. So they also said in Kiddushin 40b, study of Torah is of primary importance because it brings one to performance of mitzvahs. Meaning, you study Torah, you know what you need to do. I'm just saying that. So now this is the end of this chapter, and just a summary. It was very short. Once a person has mastered Zehirus and Zerizus and has recognized the necessity for Nekiyus, he will be inspired to acquire this trait. But he must strive to acquire through thorough knowledge of the halachic details of the various mitzvot and the ethical fine points of the various character traits. This necessitates constant study and review to ensure that he internalizes all the details and does not forget any subtle points. Constant engagement in study will further enable him to perceive even matters that are not found in any sacred writings. To attain Nekiyus, one must also avoid the factors that detract from this trait, which are the same as those that detract from Zehirus. And I hope and pray that we will all merit to live and see the coming of Mashiach speedily in our days and the rebuilding of our final and everlasting Beit HaMikdash. Amen, and thanks for watching.